When people are looking at a roof, often people neglect maintenance and they don't realize what they really should do.
Every roof here in South Florida with the weather we experience, you should definitely, it's almost like seeing a dentist. You should have some sort of agreement or inspection plan in place with a reputable roofer, because you don't want to be going into hurricane season after hurricane season left exposed. There's things like making sure your gutters aren't clogged or making sure leaves aren't building up in the valleys of your roofs that could knock years and years off of a roof's lifespan, regardless of which roof system you choose. Giving a roofer a couple $100 to come out and do an inspection, blow the leaves off your roof and check for cracked tiles could solve and mitigate. And those are things that aren't talked about enough, and a lot of people don't know about, just simply due to lack of information out there. But hopefully we can help change today.
Welcome, everyone, to today's podcast episode. You're listening to the Home Design Podcast. My name is Adam Kayce, your host, and we aim to educate, inspire, and connect South Florida with the industry authorities within their trade. When it comes to protecting your home, the roof matters most. In this episode, we get into what every homeowner and commercial property owner should know, from choosing the right materials to avoiding costly mistakes, backed by decades of experience in Florida's toughest conditions, all with Shawn Biederman of SCI Roofing. How's it going?
How are you, Adam?
I'm doing all right.
Thanks for having me.
You ready to dive into this?
I'm excited.
All right. Well, today we're talking everything roofing, and that goes from residential, commercial, and really just getting all of your knowledge into one podcast to educate the people who are listening. But before we get into all the roofing, I want to know a little bit about more about you, and this may be the most challenging question of the day, but who is Shawn Biederman?
Shawn Biederman is the current general manager of SCI Roofing. I'm a third-generation roofer, and a little bit about me. I originally thought roofing was not at all what I wanted to do. I did it throughout high school. I hated being on the roof, thought it was hot, sweaty, and I was good at it, but I got sick of it really quick. So at 17 years old, left high school early, joined the Navy, and I thought that's what was going to be my life's calling. I quickly found out that wasn't the case. I loved my time in, loved the military. I tell people all the time that I went in a boy, came out a man. But I found out by at least the time I was 19 that I was going to be coming home in one form or another. And it's just how my life played out. Roofing has been my calling. I've been involved in one form since I was 7 years old. So this is going on year 20 of roofing experience here, and I've been back since 2021. Got out of the military, and I came back in more of a project management role. And over the time, our company has grown, and we've joined the home show. Started expanding more into residential. We originally started out as just a purely industrial roofer, and that's all we did. And now we're kind of an A to Z roofer where we'll tackle any problem that anybody has. That's
amazing, because SCI started when?
So the company itself,
your grandfather started it, right?
Right.
Okay.
It's I'm a third generation family business. My grandfather started this in 1978. That's the date that we were established. He got messed over by a waterproofing contractor who went around town and painted everybody's home, and a bunch of homeowners got liens. I got to backtrack a little bit. I'm sorry. So my grandfather originally came down to Florida in 1958. Okay. And he started manufacturing paints for a company, which he owned a company and then sold to what is now UCI Paints on the highway. Yeah. But in the late 70s, there was a company called Asher Waterproofing who bought $300,000 worth of paint from my grandfather and painted a bunch of homes. The homeowners paid him, didn't pay my grandfather. So a bunch of homeowners got liens and stuff and went to court. And long story short, we ended up with Asher Waterproofing, and my grandfather made it his mission after that day, after watching a bunch of these people get, essentially taken for a run, right? That he was going to go into the contracting space and get rid of every unscrupulous contractor here in South Florida. And that's how we started.
That's amazing, because when you hear stories like that, I mean, there was a real purpose. And it was not for his purpose, it was for everybody's purpose. And he was a true person of the community, getting into the business to solve a problem, to be able to give people what they deserve, the service they deserve. And then obviously, here we are today, SCI Roofing. I mean, third generation, that says a lot, not only about your grandfather, your father, yourself, and, obviously the future of the business. But you're in the field every single day. You're working with all types of customers. Doesn't matter if we're talking about commercial, if we're talking about residential, but what would you say that people are most impressed about when they work with SCI?
Well, it comes from our history. We have a really strong backbone. So we built the company off of a Dave Ramsey philosophy where we're built to weather any storm. We take a more conservative approach when it comes to, things like marketing and stuff like that. Right. In terms of finances, we own everything outright. We don't owe anybody a dime, which is something I'm not saying to brag, but when the economy takes a turn for the worse, we're still going to be here. And so 47 years, that's stayed true. We've never gone out of business or changed phone numbers or anything like that. But when it comes to being impressive, is a lot of companies, they'll fold up, they'll sell, they'll change names, go out of business, and their warranties won't remain well. We got a call the other day when in 2012 we gave out a 14-year warranty, or a 15-year warranty, sorry. And then now here at the end of 2025, we're on year 14 of that warranty.
Right.
It was a shopping mall down in Oakland Park. They had some leaks, and they called us, and we went out there and fixed it as a warranty repair. Didn't charge them a dime. That roof was done when I was in middle school.
That's incredible. And that's what people need to, and we'll get into this later, but when it comes to hiring a contractor, I mean, you're right. We see companies coming and going, changing names for whatever reasons, whatever stories, things like that. But the fact that, what someone can know about the contractor that they're hiring. And to your point, the fact that you own everything, you don't owe anyone anything. If something turns bad, I mean, you guys still have everything that you need to be able to function, because economy changes, things evolve. But at the end of the day, working with somebody where the warranty will mean something, because a warranty is worthless if they're out of business. I mean, it's just their problem. Whether they did a good job, not a good job, whatever it may be. But fortunately, in your situation, people can really read into the longevity of the business. The fact that you have glowing reviews, project after project, and people contract you with massive projects. I mean, we watch what you guys do, and we see the projects that you're on, and we see the customer reviews, and we see when people actually like their contractor after a project, that says a lot. But when we're going into products and right materials for the right projects, I want to kind of now dive into roofing materials.
Of course.
Because there are a lot of different applications. We'll start with the residential side, because we'll talk about shingles, metal roofing, tiles, slate. I mean, there's so many different applications.
Right.
But what would you say are the main differences between the materials that we see that are being installed on homes?
Yeah, so here in South Florida in the residential scene, your three main types of roofs you listen. You have shingle roofs, metal roofs, tile roofs, and they all kind of fall in that order. And the answer as to what the right buy is and what's the best for your home, it really depends on the individual person. There's no one size fits all.
Right.
If you need a roof because your insurance is canceling you and you're planning to sell a home in 3 years, there's absolutely no reason to put a metal roof on, because it's going to be twice the price of a shingle roof. It's going to be more expensive than a tile roof. If this is your forever home, I would suggest metal every single time, because it's going to last the longest. And then there's, communities out west where the HOA mandates tile and you have no choice. Tiles, also, in most people's opinion, the most aesthetically pleasing. So in terms of materials, those are going to be your main three, and they're all going to have different sorts of applications and different lifespans. And,
right.
It really, there's no one size fits all down here, because everybody has a different scenario in their life they're going through.
Yeah, and also to that point, I'm sure value of home probably has fluctuation in the sense of what somebody should realistically, install on their, if they're doing a new roof.
Of course, yeah. If people are planning to sell the house, the only roof that we're currently seeing that actually has a positive impact on the value, other than the fact that it's a new roof, of course,
Right.
is a metal roof. People, will actively shop for metal roofs, and that's becoming more and more common.
Okay.
In terms of replacing the roof, a lot, and you can see this on a lot of real estate listings that, the listing will just say new roof in the year. It doesn't really get any deeper than that. Maybe they don't know, but,
Right.
That's kind of the common things. It just says new roof in the year. And so, we don't see the ROI in somebody looking to sell their home, going and replacing it with the best roof that they can. It's more so, they replace it to get rid of the house, and they're ending with something lower end.
It's basically saying, don't worry about it. Like, we did it for you. The investment's already been made. You won't have that headache for a while. So, because people are afraid. I mean, the roof is the most important component to a home because that shields every element that could come into a home, and having it properly done because, people, they don't know what they don't know, and when it comes to roofing, when it comes to, the contractor, when it comes to all these different things, let's go into, somebody installed, the roof, or they bought a home and it has a certain type of roof. Let's talk about the maintenance component of that, because when people are looking at a roof, often people neglect maintenance and they don't realize what they really should do. Are there some materials that uphold better or have a better longevity as far as the look of it, or, things that people should be doing?
Yeah, of course. So I'm going to answer part of that first, which was talking about the maintenance. Every roof here in South Florida, with the weather we experience, you should definitely, it's almost like seeing a dentist. You should have some sort of agreement or inspection plan in place with a reputable roofer, because you don't want to be going into hurricane season after hurricane season left exposed. The people that have agreements in places with roofers, have maintenance plans, those, when a hurricane hits, they're going to be taken care of first. And that's just the reality of it. And when it comes to your specific roof and what you need to do, there's things like making sure your gutters aren't clogged, or making sure leaves aren't building up in the valleys of your roofs that could knock years and years off of a roof's lifespan, regardless of which roof system you choose.
Okay.
That, giving a roofer a couple $100 to come out and do an inspection, blow the leaves off your roof and check for cracked tiles could solve and mitigate. And those are things that aren't talked about enough, and a lot of people don't know about, just simply due to lack of information out there, that hopefully we can help change today.
Yeah, I mean, maintenance, people hear about it in all different components of the home, especially when it comes to HVAC and things like that.
Right.
But roof maintenance, like, what do those plans look like? Does SCI, do you guys offer actual maintenance plans where, it's just, you guys are going to show up X amount of, after X amount of time and do what you need to do?
Yeah, so SCI has one. We call it Storm Shield Service Plan. That's the name we gave it. And we don't have a kind of a one-size-fits-all plan. We really tailor it to the individual client. So if it's a homeowner, and they have a 3,000-foot tile roof, somebody coming out once a year and making sure the valleys are clear, checking for cracked tiles, checking for leaks, and then pressure cleaning every other year or every third year is beyond plenty for a home like that. And then, it'll vary, because big industrial buildings, you'll need people on those every 90 days.
Right.
Because well, they're different types of roofs, simply, but it really varies, and we don't like a one-size-fits-all approach, but having somebody or having a maintenance plan in place to protect your property, because you just said it a couple minutes ago, the roof is the most important part, and when a hurricane rolls through, you kind of want that peace of mind that, my roof's been checked, it's been in good shape, and I'm not rolling the dice on this, because the price of maintenance for 10 years will be offset if you have one leak.
Right.
The price to repair that one leak is going to wipe out 10 years of somebody coming out to check your roof. So it's, in that sense, it's more of you choose the peace of mind, or you choose the savings and rolling the dice. And that, I guess, would be left to the individual homeowner.
Well, I mean, savings comes in a lot of different ways. Like, it's momentary savings in the sense where, I don't want to pay for the maintenance right now, or it's going to be more expensive later because there's going to be larger issues. Things like, as you mentioned, by not pressure washing, by not, cleaning the leaves off, by not doing all those things, it will wipe off years of the life of the roof. So what is it that those elements, like, say if you have leaves sitting on your roof, like, what is it that leaves will do to the actual roof itself? Yeah,
that's probably one of the number one things that I see that just goes completely unguarded and unnoticed, but leaves hold water.
Right.
And so when it rains, water piles up in the leaves, and the leaves will congregate in a low area, which is generally a cricket, what we call a cricket, where two slopes meet, or a valley, whereas valley is two slopes meeting running down the roof. Leaves will congregate there, and this is such a simple thing. It takes 5 seconds to blow them off, but there's a piece of metal called a valley metal, and the water will actually rust it out because 99% of roofs are installed down here use what's called galvanized steel. It's rated for about 20 years, and it will prematurely age if it's left exposed to water for extended periods of time. And so something as simple as that will just, I've seen it just knock years and years, and then it eventually will cause a leak, and a leak in those vulnerable areas is the most expensive leaks you will have.
Right. No, absolutely. And talking about like all these different materials that you guys use, that do you have like favorite materials or suggested materials that you would say is like, best application for most homes? Yeah.
When it comes to best applications down here, it's a little more money, but I always recommend people upgrading to aluminum metal.
Okay.
That's all your weak points of your roofs, your flashings, your valley metals, your drip edges. And what that does is aluminum doesn't rust here. We're right on the water. People think you're safe because you're a couple miles inland, but we're finding time after time that with galvanized steel, and when you're hitting years 15, 16, 17, 18, you're having signs of rust. You're having rust holes. Your metals are, getting completely obliterated, and they go before the roof goes itself. And so in terms of the scheme of things, we're talking a price difference of 2, 3, 4% max. But if your metal goes, then you have to replace the whole roof because you're gonna have a hard time fixing all the leaks.
Right.
But if you have the inverse, you're in a good situation where your roof goes, you get the full 30 years out of the underlayment before the metal goes.
That's amazing, because the underlayment is one of the most important parts of the installation, right?
The underlayment is the whole roof.
That's the whole roof, because everything else is really aesthetic. It's protecting it. But let's talk about the underlayment materials and the process of the application, because that's something that people they're not even thinking about. They're thinking about the aesthetic, what the cost is, what the materials are, how many years do I have out of this, but the proper installation and what goes underneath what the aesthetic purpose is really what's going to determine the longevity.
This is the most exciting conversation I have with people all the time. It's about underlayments. I'll go and show a homeowner, and the first thing they want to look at is the tile brochure, pick the pretty color tile.
That's all they care about, right?
Right. It's what goes underneath that makes your roof. So we'll start with tile because it varies drastically for every single type of roof that you put on, what you're going to put below it. And tile is arguably the most common roof that goes down here right now, so I think it'd probably be best to focus there. Right now, the old way of putting on roofs was a hot asphalt. You'd have a base sheet, you would mop a hot asphalt with a 90-pound underlayment, and that was the roofing system since World War II. You would know it's going down. Everybody would say a good roof is, when you smell the kettle, because the kettle stinks, it's hot, and it's obnoxious. That is almost entirely gone away. That's less than 5% of the applications today. Everybody now is using self-adhered underlayments, which is essentially an asphalt backing on the back of a sheet that is designed to melt when it's applied. So it's the name, it's self-adhered. It adheres itself. People call it peel and stick because you peel it and it sticks. I call it idiot-proof roofing. Right. It is hard to mess up.
But it is possible.
It is.
The wrong roofer can mess it up.
I have seen it happen. Believe me, I've seen it happen. But that's the industry standard, and there's over 700 variations of self-adhered underlayments just for tile roofs alone. So your experience with self-adhered could vary drastically.
Is there something that a homeowner or property owner in general should know about what they should ask for, what the underlayment is? Like, are there properties to an underlayment that makes one better than another?
That's a very good question. Yeah. Generally, underlayments are generally underlayments are graded by millage. So the thickness of the underlayment, and on your thinner side, you're going to have 60 mil, which would be something like a Polyglass TU Max. That's your run of the mill tile underlayment. It's industry standard on new construction homes. And it's a bit thinner. It's designed for 20 years, but it's only 60 mil thick, and it's one ply. And then more to your thicker side, you would have a TU Plus, which is a bit more of an expensive underlayment, but it's up near 80 mils, so it's a little bit thicker, designed for 30 years, lasts a little bit longer. They're all in the same neighborhood when it comes to self-adhered underlayments. The general name of the game is when you put them down, you can get what's called an SWR credit for your insurance.
Okay, yep.
All homeowners that have a mortgage, they're required to have insurance. This is what makes that area of it worth it. You can take what's called, it's Polyglass MTS, which stands for metal tile shingle. And you can cut it in 6-inch strips. They make the rolls prefab, and you can put them around the plywood joints, and that gives you what's called a sealed deck.
Okay.
And then the insurance will give you a credit on that called the SWR credit. It's called Secondary Water Resistance Barrier Credit. The price of installing the 6-inch strips will be wiped off within the first year by that credit. And so it's always a no-brainer. So if somebody's shopping for...
And that's a forever credit. Every year you'll be...
Correct.
Yeah, you'll have that benefit.
Correct. And that's one thing that, if you're shopping for a roof today, a lot of contractors will go in knowing that the first thing the homeowners look at is price.
Yeah.
And, it's an obvious thing that roofing isn't the most exciting, like the lighting or the interior. It's an obstacle. People have to get it done.
How many times have you walked down the street and somebody say, "Hey, look at that roof"?
I'm the only one who does it.
Right.
Yeah, my fiance's sick of it, so
that's funny.
But that truly is, we are an obstacle, and that's people come to us because they need us.
Right.
Yeah, and when that happens, people necessarily, most of the time, they're not planning for it. And so it's an unexpected, they have leaks and they need to replace it, or their insurance is canceling them. And then they're looking at they have pain, unavoidable pain coming.
Right.
Financial pain coming. They have to find the quickest way to avoid this.
Right.
So roofers know that. And that's where the sinister part of the industry comes in. There's contractors that will intentionally dress up their proposals to give you an artificially low number to either hit you for the change they're losing on the front end once they've got the contract signed, or they're giving you the lowest quality roof possible, some of which are designed to fail in about 11 to 12 years.
Right.
And they sell these things to you as 20 and 30-year systems. And it's something we don't practice, but it's a tough part of our industry.
Well, it's a matter of making sure that whoever you're working with knows, understanding what all of the different qualities are of the materials being installed, how it's being installed, the questions to ask, all these different things, because, that is the biggest challenge, and you're right. I mean, the biggest issue is that the fact of what people don't know, because they don't know to ask. I mean, they're looking at a roof. A roof is a roof in the sense of you put on a new roof, and they're probably even thinking that the quality of the roof is more so the quality of the material, as far as, the shingle, the tile, the metal, versus really understanding what the underlayment is, what additional steps can be taken to be able to give you insurance benefits, because, that's something that they're not necessarily focused on. They're focused on the sale to be able to get the deal, get the price, and homeowner be able to get what they need. And they're not going to essentially hear from the homeowner for a while. 10 years later, how many homeowners are saying, "Oh, I wish I did it this way or that way." They're just assuming it's just, I have a leak, now we have to fix it. So going into all of that, and we'll get into more as far as, how to hire a contractor and things like that, because knowing the questions to ask is so important, and knowing all of these different elements that goes into a structurally sound roof is something that people need to know about when they're shopping. But when it comes to roofing, there's a lot of weekend warriors out there, DIYers, things like that. Is a roof something that a homeowner should ever mess with or really touch?
Never in a million years. The weekend warriors, that is a special, they got a special place in my heart.
Right.
Because when I was 19 years old, I bought my first home, and I tore the thing down to the studs and tried to put it back, together myself with a shoestring budget and a bunch of YouTube videos, and it didn't work well. And that was interior.
Right.
But on the exterior, especially the most important part of the home, it is really, really important that you have somebody that's a licensed professional, that's reputable, and really knows what they're doing on there. All the time, we're fixing a building up right now in Miami, where the homeowner went and thought they could fix the leak themselves. They poked an even bigger hole in the roof and flooded out two of their apartments.
Oh, wow.
It's only a quadplex building, and this is something that just happened within the last 14 days. It happens all the time where somebody doesn't like the price for a repair. They're not looking to eat a couple grand in an egg, and they try and fix it themselves with a bucket of coating from Home Depot and a bunch of wishes and dreams. And if you do it successfully, more power to you, but it generally backfires, and this is the one area of the house where DIYing is not recommended whatsoever.
Right, because, to your point, you can make a bigger problem. You can put down an application that you shouldn't have that needs to be removed or whatever it is, because it's not just like you keep putting layers over a roof. It's not like you're painting a wall. Like, more layers doesn't mean better. But when it comes to, let's identify all of the components to the roof, because the roof isn't just the underlayment. There's more to the roof, and then there's the trusses, and there's the straps, and all of these different things. Can you just run through all of the different elements that somebody should know about when that just goes into roof and roof maintenance and construction and the different elements of it?
Yeah, of course. I'll stick to tile because that's going to be the
that's most general, right?
So the first thing is the base of your roof is your plywood deck.
Right.
Pretty much every single home down here has a 5/8 CDX plywood deck, which is just your standard construction plywood. The older homes are going to have what's called tongue and groove, but that really hasn't been the standard since the 60s.
Right.
So that's the foundation of your roof. Below that is your truss system and what's called roof to wall connections. That has become a very important thing the last couple of years. Actually, Governor DeSantis recently signed what would be the state's equivalent of an executive order, saying it's now the roofer's responsibility to ensure that those roof to wall connections are up to code. That's something new in the last 90 days that a lot of people aren't aware of, but they're now responsible for.
So is that something, basically, if you touch a roof, you have to make sure all the straps, everything is secure and sound, or have some type of liability sign off where the homeowner doesn't want you to do more? Or is that basically what it is?
That's exactly what it is. Is the roof to wall connections are what makes sure your whole truss system doesn't blow off when a hurricane rolls through. And a lot of these homes that were built in the 70s, 80s, 90s, they use what's called a saddle strap, which is a single little tiny piece of metal with 2 nails that goes over the top. It was not designed to a Hurricane Andrew rolling through. And so now what everybody's upgrading to is what's called a gusset system, which is essentially a fancy word for a bunch of L brackets installed with 4 bolts on each side. That's a lot more secure. New times, new technology. It's just a little bit better way of doing things. But to the executive order side of things, that's what a lot of people are doing nowadays, is that they just give the homeowner a sheet of paper saying sign off on this,
right? And
it's them waiving their liability to these straps. And this is, in my opinion, probably the most important part of the job. What good is a new fancy roof if right in the middle of hurricane season a category 4 rolls through here and blows the whole truss system off? You could have a 10-year warranty, you could have a 15-year warranty, but if your roof is in the lake behind your house, who cares?
Right, exactly. None of that matters at that point. So and also there are insurance benefits, to be able to replace the straps, add more straps, whatever that process looks like.
Correct. Yeah. So if you think of having a kayak or a canoe and you have a couple holes in it, it's taking on water. Putting the seam tape around the plywood joints would be plugging one hole. Doing these gusset straps would be plugging the other.
Okay.
And you get a benefit from the insurance when you do one of them, but the benefit is greatest when you do all of them. And so if you take steps to make your home more safe, for hurricanes, the insurance risk analysis, they look at that, they see it, and it benefits you in the terms of your premium. So this stuff pays for itself, but those two things are very, very important parts of your roof, and very few people talk about them, very few people bring them up, very few people address them, and it's something we at SCI, we consider it standard, but a lot of people try and sweep it under the rug because it does add cost on the front side.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, because, when you're looking at all different costs, there's a lot of factors that go into it and ways to be able to ultimately meet a budget, because everyone has a budget.
Right.
And it's a matter of giving people the best proposal possible for them, for their home, for if it's a certain value home, if it's a home on the water, if it's a home that they're just looking to sell, if they're flipping, whatever it might be. There's all these different elements that go into it. But for what you're seeing as far as the industry and what you guys are installing, or more so what people are asking for, we already know metal is, probably the best application that you can put on your roof. But are there certain trends that you're seeing? Is metal a trend? Is it something that's here to stay?
Metal is a major trend.
Yeah. I mean, do you think that it has longevity? Do you think it'll be here long term?
I absolutely love metal roofs. I think metal roofing is going to be the future of roofs. I've actually, and recently in June, I went up to the FRSA, which is the Florida Roofing Contractor Association show in Orlando, Florida, to actually look at manufacturers to buy the means of production for SCI.
Okay.
It's something we are strongly considering. Metal, pound for pound in the residential space for sloped roofs, is the best roof you can put down. It will hold up the best in hurricanes, has the best design pressure, it lasts the longest. It also means it's the most expensive.
Right.
It is the priciest roof you can put down.
But when you say expensive, like, apples to apples, 3,000 square foot roof, somebody looking at tile, somebody looking at metal, how much more expensive is it?
So you start at the bottom at shingle. Shingle is going to be your cheapest.
Right.
Shingle to tile is almost a double jump. It's not exactly double, but I would say 1.8. It's somewhere around there. It's going to, depending on how the tile roof is, it's a jump. So your tile and your metal roofs are a lot closer. Depending on the type of metal roof you put down, your jump from tile to metal is going to be about 25 to 40%. It's an upgrade and a worthwhile than that, but you're going to feel it in the pocketbook. So
for the immediate.
Right. So what I recommend to people is I tell them, I say, if this is your forever home, I would put metal on it and I wouldn't look back, because chances are, you're not going to think about your roof again. And different metal roofs, depending on the way you go, you generally are getting a 35 to 50 year life expectancy out of them. And the insurance here in South Florida, which is, with Citizens, which is the toughest of the bunch, they will recognize up to 26 years is what I'm being told.
Okay.
And that's what they have on their website online, is that they'll recognize up to 26. And so if you're putting a metal roof down, that's increased longevity that you just won't really see otherwise. Shingle we're seeing, from 16 to 18, and tile we're seeing from 20 to 24, but we're getting at the lowest 26 with metal. And so it's an investment, but if this is somebody's home that they're not going to sell, in my opinion, it's worth it.
And also aesthetically, like, you can have all different colors, things like that. Let's talk about the aesthetic purpose, because when people are looking at the design of their home, that does play a big role and has a big factor in the sense of that. So, what are those aesthetic elements to metal that we can talk about?
Yeah, metal, they give you a color palette and you can choose, from a variety of colors, because essentially they just put a paint over the top of it.
Right.
And metal gives the homes, more of a sleek look, and it really blends more with the modern times. So we hold a couple new construction GC accounts in Fort Lauderdale that do all the waterfront monsters. Those guys are all putting metal roofs on if they're slope roofs, just because the design of it looks modern. People use the word contemporary a lot.
Yeah.
And it fits in.
Now you sound like a designer.
I sound like Adam.
Shawn the designer. Yeah. There we go.
So
yeah, without a doubt. And the other thing is, like, what are people asking you? So if somebody wants to, they're looking to re-roof,
right.
And what questions are they asking? What concerns do most people have when looking at, and we can touch on all of the different products, like, what is their biggest concern about shingle, biggest concern about, the tile, and then biggest concern about metal? Yeah.
So the biggest concern about shingle in South Florida is definitely the wind rating. So some shingles, like your lower ends, your 3-taps, they're designed to only hold up to about 100 miles an hour. And then you have a bracket that's designed for about 115 and a bracket that's designed for about 130. And the manufacturers of those shingles will actually give you a wind warranty rated off of how strong their shingles are. So when you're looking for a shingle, if shingle roof's the one, the decision you've made, you'd aim for the 115 number as like a rule of thumb. This is the wind warranty I want. This is, what I want my shingles to be rated for, because you're going to get a good balance between price and a good balance between, performance as well.
Gotcha.
And then just a little more on shingle, there's two different avenues that people can go under the shingle. So the shingle is what people see, but the underlayment is what performs. Everything in the shingle roofing space has been drifting towards self-adhered underlayments. Those underlayments are designed to melt to the plywood deck and be hurricane-proof when they pull up. So, essentially the whole plywood deck would have to blow off in order for the roof to fail. And these designs and that movement is with hurricanes and hurricanes only in mind. And so if you were putting a shingle roof down, I would look at what I would look at is having a manufacturer system spec.
Gotcha.
What that is essentially the manufacturer makes the shingles, they make the underlayment, and they warranty the entire system. So if something fails, there's only one person to point at. Tile, it would essentially be the same thing.
Right.
So everything has been drifting towards self-adhered underlayments. They're all designed with hurricanes in mind. Westlake, they actually have a design center right next to our office. They make an underlayment that's called Tile Seal.
Okay.
And so you can put the Tile Seal with their tile, and they will warranty everything. So if there's a manufacturer problem, we just get Westlake involved.
Okay.
And what I have found, and what SCI has found in recent years, is having that kind of manufacturer spec really helps homeowners, because when they have issues down the line, one manufacturer can't blame the other, and they wipe their hands of it, and then the homeowner's left sitting in the dust. It's just there's one manufacturer. They generally get involved and cough up and make the situation right.
So most manufacturers, they truly stand behind their product and what's being installed.
I wish that was the case. I wish that was the case.
Yeah.
What I find is the manufacturers that a lot of the bigger roofers use.
Right.
A lot of roofers that come to the home design remodeling show, those aren't your one truck guys.
Right.
These guys are using the top dog products.
Right.
Like, they're not using products and manufacturers that have only been in business 4 or 5 years and are questionable when it comes to their warranty. They're using your major players like your Owens Corning, your GAF, your Westlake, that if there's an issue, there's a rep attached to that company that will get involved and help, and they really make good on it. And so that's why when I talk to people, and this is going to get a little bit off topic, I tell them, you can't really buy a roof from a Facebook ad.
Right.
You need to go to a show. You need to go. You need to educate yourself, and you need to take some time to research these things, because these little things could mean thousands of dollars in damages down the line if you're not careful.
Absolutely. And the thing is, longevity of business. You guys have the experience. You've been in business for 47 years. Other companies in the industry, you've gone through it. You know what to look for. You know what headaches you don't want. So, that goes to what manufacturers you guys are using in the applications and the educational component, because, big part of experience is knowing, obviously, the questions that people are going to ask you, but also what troubles something could, create,
Right.
by not using the right product or not doing the right application or cutting corners or things like that. Because the longevity of every business is, everything that you do every single day, how you react to, problems come up, how you react to those problems, how you address every single quote, every client, reality is construction. A lot of things can go good, go bad, but it's what you do to be able to make things right that brings the manufacturer to a higher level, brings the installation company to a higher level. But going into all of these different things and talking about metal, I feel like, here in Florida, it's not like we're living in the mountains where there's a lot of trees.
Right.
But I'm sure people ask the question, well, what happens if a tree branch hits my roof? Is that a concern? Does it damage the roof? Like, is there anything like that people should know about? Or is that kind of like a misconception? Don't worry about it. These are strong roofs.
Pound for pound, metal is going to be the strongest. What I tell people is I say don't have Superman expectations. Nefarious activity or acts of God are going to be nefarious activity and acts of God, regardless of what type of roof you have down. So if you have a metal roof and, a 70-foot tall tree comes crashing down,
doesn't matter what roof you have.
That's right. Yeah, I don't know if you're going to be all right there.
Yeah.
But, if you're talking about a Cat 3 rolling through and you come out of it with one leak, or you come out of it with one panel with some visual damage, you've made out well. So in terms of the upgrade, it's definitely worth it. What I will tell people when it comes to metal is it is going to be an adjustment when it comes to your general living. You will notice that you have a metal roof on, because when it rains, you're going to hear it.
Right.
The metal is mere millimeters off of your plywood deck. And so there is no longer that gap that you have with the tile or that buffer that you have with the shingle. And so it's just rain coming down hard, hitting metal, and you're going to hear it through your attic. And so that is the number one, I would say, complaint that I get with metal is that you hear the rain. So if that's the number one complaint, we're sitting pretty,
right,
we're
no
sitting
kidding.
good. So
absolutely, without a doubt. And going into everything, so we've talked about insurance, how things have changed, their requirements, all of that. What would you say as far as in the insurance industry? Like, have they really tightened their requirements? Because we're hearing about insurance companies coming and leaving the Florida market and leaving other markets that are more susceptible and things like that. How do insurance companies overall look at, the structural integrity of a home, and then how the roof really plays a role in that?
Yeah, that's been a major change just in the last couple of years. So in 2021, unfortunately, we had the Surfside collapse, and in the Congress world or state Senate world, there was kind of a snapback reaction. They passed a bill. It's nicknamed 2B. Essentially, one of the things in that now law gave insurers the right to deny a roof simply based on its age. And so across the board, what used to be the standard practice is that the insurance would come, they'd say, you need a new roof, and it'd be an 18, 20-year-old roof. The homeowner would either get a new roof, or they would say, I disagree, and they would get a licensed roofer to come out and give you an inspection. We would inspect the roof. We'd say, the insurance is wrong. This roof has 8, 9, 10 years left on it.
Right.
We'd write a letter, give them documentation, and they would kind of barter, and they'd say, we don't think 8, but we'll do 4, and then they get 4 years. And then they can prepare and plan. That is no longer the case. The insurance, they could just unilaterally say, no, the roof is 16 years old. I don't care what this guy that roofs every single day says.
Right.
You have to replace this or we're not covering you. And then people get 90-day notices where they now have 90 days to have a replaced roof, not a contract signed, but a replaced roof.
Right.
And it is a ungodly situation that, unfortunately, we can't really do much about.
Right.
My dad himself, he's now 55 and he's getting close to retirement. One of his missions in life in the past couple of years is when he retires, he's going to go up to Tallahassee with a group that he's already forming and lobby the state Senate to overturn that law, because we see firsthand, and we're on the front lines of what it's doing to homeowners, and even worse, that we haven't touched on, the condo market has been just obliterated by this and or decimated. And my dad has made it one of his missions. He's going to go and try and overturn the law because right now in the residential space, and even more so the condo space,
right,
we're replacing roofs that are fine. They got 5, 10, even 12 years of life left on them, but we're tearing them off just because the insurance is telling us to. And these are roofs that would survive a major hurricane.
Right. So basically it just comes down to when a roof was installed, nothing else matters as far as the integrity of it. Oh, we hit this X amount of years, that's it, versus actually the real condition. Because, and unfortunately, insurance companies have the power over everything because, they can just leave a market.
Right.
And it leaves a lot of people with different challenges and things like that. Insurance gets more expensive. And that's when all of these different things that you've already brought up as far as how to get different types of rebates or credits, when it comes to the overall cost of your insurance, being able to do certain types of applications, making sure that you spend a little bit more and that credit pays off within a year. And then obviously you have every other year as a benefit, which ultimately pays off probably every other upgrade that you're doing on that roof as a whole. So, when looking at all of that, do insurance companies also look at what material was installed? Because I guess every material there's a life,
Right.
for,
Yep.
whatever product they're putting on the roof, but do they hold it at a higher standard, like in the sense of like, okay, metal, this person invested, they're going to get X amount and that's what it is. Same thing with, tile, same thing with shingle.
Unfortunately, we are really in a time where these changes are too new to really, have a standard set of responses, to that, because I've, done one thing, been told one thing by a broker, an agent, an underwriter, and then been told something completely different by somebody else, and
Right.
It varies. But generally, what we have seen in the last couple of years as a response to this change in 2B is that the movements homeowners make to make their home more hurricane safe actually makes them a lot more competitive in terms of the insurance market. So
Right.
in exchange, rather than them fighting to get coverage from whoever will take them, they will now have multiple, underwriters, multiple carriers rather, that are, willing to take a lower margin or a lower premium to insure their home because they view that home as less risk.
Okay. Without a doubt. I mean, and that's what insurance is. It's all about risk.
Right.
They do risk assessment every single day. Also where a home is located, so if there's a home on the water, there's different steps that you have to take and different, things that an insurance company or what they're going to be looking at versus a home that's all the way out west.
That's 100% true. And so that carries over to the roof and, plugging holes like we just talked about. And it really does. So, when people are looking to replace their roof, that extra money on the front side to do those upgrades, it far outweighs, the negatives that come on the back side.
Right. Without a doubt. And just how the industry is changing, we see a lot of different things moving in the roofing category as a whole. There's a lot of private equity that's coming into the space. It's like, I feel like in the past 5 years, is that good? Is it bad for the industry? Like, what's your take on the influence of private equity coming into the roofing industry?
I think it's both. I think it's good because it's forced a lot of old-time contractors like ourselves. There's a big chunk of brow roofers that have been around for a long time, that are still family-owned, owned by the same people, and private equity has come in, not only trying to acquire our companies, but, has bought up competitors or, has become roofers themselves, and now we have to compete with them. So it's made a more competitive marketplace. You have to be better at things that, necessarily weren't a thing in the past. I kind of point to two things that were really catalysts for this happening about 5 years ago. Yep. One was COVID. Everything shut down, but home services, roofing, AC, HVAC, plumbing, they just kept on rolling. They didn't stop with good margin. And these companies are making good margin.
Right.
And so private equity analysts, they definitely realized that and started jumping in. And the second thing was Google actually a couple years ago made a change over to Google Guaranteed and Google LSA. And that has, where everything used to be pay-per-click, and that LSA has really just turned home service into, there's now a palpable model where you can essentially just give a marketing company or a digital marketer where you say, here's the money, and then they give you the leads.
Absolutely.
And that is a business model that
right.
people do. And so I know of roofing companies that are in like WeWork offices that they just, they give $15,000 a month to a digital marketer, and then they have a salesman go sell the lead, and then they 1099 out the work. And that's a business model in today's world.
Right.
So it's definitely changed. Those two things definitely changed, but it's made competition good.
Has it changed like the pricing of the industry as far as like how you quote projects? Do they short quotations? Like, do they charge less? Do they charge more? I mean, what's the approach? How has that affected it?
It has definitely brought a different angle to things. There's no universal answer. Some people are just, with more fish in the pond, everybody's got to be a little bit tighter and a little bit tougher. Exactly. So it's definitely made the competition a little stiffer. But, these are people that are buying these companies, and their thought is numbers and revenue, whereas my thought is I want to take care of this homeowner, so they'll refer me to another.
Right.
We're doing a neighborhood down in Weston where we got one house in there, and they've referred us, and now we're on house number 9 in there. And I can, like, that to me is my success.
Absolutely.
But, a hedge fund wouldn't look at that. They would be looking at, dollars and cents and making 33% versus 35% over the span of 10 million.
Right.
And so, roofers are getting bought, and, a company that may have had a marketing budget of 10,000 will go to 100,000 overnight, and it completely changes things.
Right. No, without a doubt. I mean, because the approach is different. Like, they're looking at numbers.
Right.
You're looking at a lot of different factors. Obviously, numbers matter when it comes to the success of the business, but also your reputation. Reputation management is extremely important. Getting the referral. Referral should be the most powerful source of business because that means you did a good job. People liked you. They're referring their friends, their family, people that they don't know, because that's why the experience part is so important. But there are a lot of companies out there where they're just, they quote the project, get the sale, finish the project, on to the next, versus really, cultivating some type of relationship with the client.
I couldn't agree more. I think a lot of what we do today is relational. I try and make that what sets us apart. A fun fact, actually, is that the homeowner in Weston I met that sold that first roof, I met him walking into the home show because he got lost in the parking garage.
There
so
you go.
I guided him in,
and
actually ran into you in the lobby, and he ended up buying a roof from us.
That's
and then
awesome.
We did a good job. He left us a great review, and then his neighbor called us, and then it just now 6 months later, we've done 9 in that neighborhood.
Right. That's amazing.
But in terms of private equity influencing things, that would be a thing of the past. The personal touch would definitely be a thing of the past.
Right.
And something that really scares me in what I'm hearing is that I have never in my life heard of a roofing company with a staff attorney, which is like a full-time attorney to fight their legal battles. So if a roofing company has a full-time attorney that is fighting their fights for them, to me that tells me they're pricing in getting sued and getting into fights.
Right. Maybe that should be a question that somebody should ask, like when they're talking to a roofing company. So, do you guys have an in-house attorney? you know that there's a reason for it, but
definitely could be
no, without a doubt, because in the reality as to what you said.
Yeah.
Because when growing a business, building a business, how you acquire leads, there's a lot of different ways.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it all comes down to that personal interaction. People do business with people. However you meet them, however they initially, whether they click on your website, they call you, whatever that translates into, whether they meet you at a home show, whether see your truck driving down the road, whether they see a billboard, whatever that may be, however you acquire the lead, the most important factor is what happens once you make that communication, once you meet that person, because that creates a feeling, because people want to do business with people that they trust, that they feel comfortable with. At the end of the day, you're in and on their house for however long it takes to be able to finish that project. So, and that's why referrals are so important, because the most important factor of being successful and earning business is that personal component. And by getting that referral is the biggest compliment that anyone can get.
I couldn't agree more. I religiously check mine and check our Google reviews, and we, whenever we do good jobs and take care of people, we always, ask them if they liked what we did, leave us a good one, and, getting one referral always leads to the next. I had one that we just finished a roof where I consider, we made mistakes.
Right.
We had a guy fall through the ceiling.
Oh, wow.
And and this guy fell through the ceiling into a lady's living room. There's a lot of termite damage, and he stepped on the plywood, and then he went, and
guess the roof was bad.
Yeah, it was really bad. And the lady just the other day left us a good review and a picture of her sitting on her couch, and she was happy with, because the relational side is what comes after.
Right.
My project manager was at her home 30 minutes later, already coordinating the ceiling repair and getting her. We bought her a new couch.
Right.
Right. So it was just one of those things that we turn something bad into something good. Those happen all the time.
Right.
And that personal touch and maintaining relationships and keeping people on the ground that, not only just treat your house like it's their own, but, care for your property and care for the job they're doing.
Right.
It is really important. And, you won't see that loss at SCI, but, I can't speak for others in the way the industry is heading, that, the more corporatized it gets, the less personal it gets. And
right.
Roofing is still a really, really personal thing.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, I tell people all the time, I'm essentially doing open heart surgery on your house. You don't want to trust open heart surgery to a stranger. You want to know your doctor a little bit. You want to trust your doctor. And so, a faceless...
You don't see many DIY doctor. I guess they exist out there, but
DIY heart surgery.
Right, exactly. No kidding. But when going in at the beginning of this, you mentioned how you guys really started as a commercial roofer.
Right.
That was your bread and butter. That's what you did. Now you guys, with all of your experience, your knowledge, everything, obviously there's no roof that you can't handle to the highest level.
Right.
I want to talk a little bit about commercial roofs, because what is the main differentiating factor, other than the fact that commercial roofs typically are much larger, different type of structural component? What are the main factors that really differentiate residential roofs versus commercial type roofs?
Yeah, so commercial, it's just scale is the biggest thing.
Right.
Where anything over 4 units, so anything over a quadplex is considered commercial. Like they're small commercial jobs. We're doing a tile roof in Coral Springs where it's a little townhouse community with 10 unit owners.
Right.
But it's commercial because there's more than 4 units. So a commercial could mean a large strip building or a HOA development where the HOA is responsible for the roofs. And so the biggest thing really isn't the complexity of it. It's the scale. It's doing a single family home times 240 in 4 months. And so you have scale times speed, and it's definitely a step up from residential roofing. So if there's a commercial community and it's a development, you need those type of communities have to be very, very crucial or scrutinized very well. The contractors are looking at, because they can't have somebody that's been in business 9 months try and tackle a big development. They'll go underwater, go out of business.
Right, absolutely, and that's the biggest thing. And you guys are in these commercial communities, whether it's all single family homes, you're doing every single home in the community, or if you're doing these huge condo buildings or strip malls or whatever it might be. You do this every single day, and you've done it for many, many years. It's how you guys started, and working with the HOAs, working with the property managers, working with ownership and things like that. It says a lot, and it really creates that level of confidence when going into it. But when you're talking about these different applications, for whoever is the immediate point of contact as far as who's making, I guess, the ultimate hire, what are the different materials? Because I know the materials are different when you look at a commercial property and what they can consider versus a residential.
Yeah, so you're going to have 2 main types of roofs when it comes to commercial.
Right.
A lot of commercial is flat roofs, vice slope roofs. A lot of residential is slope roof, about 95%. So the tile metal shingle generally goes away in the most part when it comes to commercial projects, unless it's a development. So commercial, your main types of roofs are TPO and modified roofs. That's what's down here. They're about 96% of the market down here.
Okay.
But when it comes to those types of roofs, it varies based on the type of building you have and your intentions and the way, the direction your building's heading. Like, there's no point in putting a 30-year roof system on that's a higher-end roof system. If you're selling the building in a year, it's, almost like putting a metal roof on when you're getting ready to sell the house. It doesn't fiscally make sense. So whether it's a dwelling or whether it's just an investment property or, it's a condo itself, it completely changes the scope of things. Like beachfront condos, they like a specific type of roofing. It's called SPF, spray polyurethane foam. And it's essentially, translating it to English, it's essentially like a glue that goes down onto your building. And when a hurricane comes through, it is impossible to pull off because it has a negative 500 PSF uplift rating, which is the highest you can get in any roof there is. So it varies drastically, long story short.
And when it goes into what you have to do to apply these different types of materials, because a lot of times there's a concrete structure, right?
Right.
So you're applying it to a concrete structure, which some homes have, but not as many. What does that process look like? Like, what should people know when they're going into, okay, like I have to re-roof my massive condo building with 250 units or whatever it might be? There's people that do it right.
Right.
And there's people that don't. What does that look like as far as that installation process? Somebody hires the roofer and what they're doing to make sure that they're putting on the best roof possible.
That's a really good question. So this is going to be a long-winded answer, but and long story short, any roof that you can put down is a good roof if the right person's putting it down.
Right.
We install everything. And we do that because we don't, try and be like a unilateral decision maker saying, I think this roof is best for you and this is what I'm going to give you. I tell my sales reps and my team, I say, we're more charlatans of the product. We, give people all their options, educate them on all their options. And then at the end of the day, with our recommendation, they make a business decision for themselves that they feel is best.
Right.
Because there's lower end ways to do things, there's higher end ways to do things, and then there's a right way of doing things as well. And this is a very big thing because you either got to do it right or you got to do it twice. We're down in Pembroke Pines right now. We just took over a community that they got taken for a run for $400,000.
Wow.
They hired a roofer that was just he'd only been in business for 3 years. He was terribly underqualified to do the job, And I'm not in the business of talking bad about other roofers,
right?
But
but this is what can and
right.
does happen.
And these people, they did everything right. They saved their money. They had all the money in reserves. They saved $1 million for the project. But now, they're in an unhappy situation where they were looking at roofing materials on their front lawn for 7 months, and they're now tearing up 8-month-old roofs that they just put down. And these people are paying for something twice because the contractor not been in business long enough to know that in any dwelling in Broward County, it's a violation of the health and safety codes that you need to have a Class A fire rated roof where people live. And so he didn't put it down. He can't close out the permits. They all got to come back up. The only way to get it to Class A is to start from the beginning.
Yeah.
So it's just it's an ugly, ugly situation, and one that we're inheriting. But it kind of touches back on the point of making sure the right person's hired.
Without a doubt. And, there's a lot of different codes and regulations that goes into the process of, selecting material, how it's installed, what's all the different underlayments, everything that goes into it.
100%.
But, there's also, different codes when it comes to hurricane preparedness and having hurricane ratings and things like that. And obviously a lot of things changed after Hurricane Andrew years ago in building code and everything. And also, with unfortunately what happened in Surfside, different types of codes that they are more, strict in the sense of what needs to be done to a building, when it needs to be done, and how they're going to be more preventative in ways than anything. So talking about that, what are I guess commercial properties, and it could be condos, it could be strip malls. What is their maintenance and what does their preventative measures look like in comparison to a homeowner? Is it similar, or are there different types of things that you guys are suggesting?
The concept's the same, but it does vary. Everything in the commercial space on the manufacturer side, it's based off the 20-year what they call NDL, which stands for no dollar limit warranty, or 20-year system warranty. And long story short, they're the exact same thing, depending on which manufacturer you get. And what those systems are designed is it's to give you a roof for 20 years that the material and the labor is covered under warranty. So if there's a leak, if there's a problem for 20 straight years, it's covered by the manufacturer.
Okay.
But the game changes completely. The manufacturer will have a list of requirements that they make a condo or homeowner or a building owner rather, abide by, which means annual maintenance if the building's even larger, sometimes every 6 months, maintaining the roof, inspections, making sure you pay your warranty fees, all this stuff to make sure that if there is a problem that the manufacturer can't point the finger and say, we're no longer involved.
This wasn't done right.
This wasn't done right. We're not covering this. And on the commercial side, unfortunately, the numbers are higher. Repairs cost more, maintenance costs more because everything's bigger. It's just a more expensive way of doing things. So the numbers are exacerbated a little bit.
So when looking at that, though, and going through those the warranties and everything that's done, you as a company, you offer maintenance plans for residential. You obviously offer maintenance plans for commercial. You mentioned before that every 90 days or so, when it comes to a commercial property, you're suggested for having someone go up on the roof, making sure everything looks good. Is that a standard procedure across the industry as far as what roofers are doing and offering to condo owners or different HOAs?
Of course, yeah. I firmly believe that every single roof here in South Florida needs to have eyes on it every year, just because things change so quickly.
But that's something that your company does. Like, you will send somebody out from your team to be able to do this.
Right. So we are very aggressive when it comes to maintenance because we don't do it for the margin. It's really not a moneymaker for us, and that's very intentional. In our eyes, the benefit of it is to maintain the relationships. Right. I want to keep people on your roof, keeping your product good, so my roofs stay good, and then you remember me when the roof comes back around. Yeah, that's our side of it. But the benefit you get is you get maintenance for an affordable price. Every single I'm very adamant about this, and I get asked pretty much every single time I go to a condo or something. Is they say, "What's your maintenance look like?" I tell people all the time. I say, I cater it to you. We do not have a set maintenance plan. If there was a most common one, it would be once a year, the crew would be going out there for a half day or a full day to just do a full audit of the roof. You get an allowance for material and man hours to, maintain any part of the roof, whether that's a drain, flashing, we have a whole internal list, and it's a 37-point inspection for a commercial roof, and it's a 24-point inspection for a residential roof.
Okay.
The service techs will look at every little part of your roof to make sure it's 100% A-OK before they leave the property.
And that's something that, I mean, when you hear that, everybody should be doing. And in what is it? It's an annual fee, or is it a monthly fee that you guys charge?
It's generally an annual fee. Some people do it biannually,
right.
But it again, we tailor it to each individual. So I have, I think, 71 different types of maintenance agreements in place right now, where they're all different. So they got to pull them out and read them. It's a little more time consuming, but it's designed for the customer. It's not, designed for us. We have one, we did the Kia factory. It's a 1.1 million square foot building up in Bainbridge, Georgia. We did that in 2023 and 2024. We are up there every 60 days. We send a crew up for 2 days, and they go over all 1.1 million square feet of roof. Wow. And they come back, and it's just because the owners of that building are very adamant that they do not want problems. There's a lot of robotics, a lot of, expensive, a lot of vehicles, a lot of expensive electronics in there. They don't need roof leaks. They don't need problems. And so they, they're very, very aggressive on maintaining the roof. And so every 60 days we send a truck up.
Without it, and it can be disruptive. I mean, whether it's your home, whether it's your business, whatever it might be, it can be disruptive when you have people working on your property all the time. Because, let's be honest, when it comes to anything home related, there's always something that needs to be, fixed, improved, redone, whatever it may be. But we are in hurricane season now. Right. So when you mentioned when someone's looking at their roof, having that peace of mind, do you guys offer, I guess, general roof inspections just to give people that peace of mind and to be able to, give them the perspective in the sense of like, okay, you guys, you're good for hurricane season, but this needs to be done as far as our recommendations? How does that work?
Yeah, so that's a leg of the storm shield service plan that we offer. It's just a simple 24-point inspection on a residential roof. If anybody has a roof out there that they're concerned about, or they think may have problems, or it's getting up in age, what we do is we come out, spend a couple hours, go over 24 points of your roof that's flashing, underlayment every single part of that roof, and make sure you're A-OK. And then give you a report saying, you either are fine or you need to do X, Y, and Z to, get your roof to that fine point.
Right.
And the goal with that is to, anybody that calls us out, we leave them with the peace of mind and the satisfaction knowing that they're going to be all right when it comes to hurricanes.
Basically your stamp of approval. And when you're looking at different areas, and when it goes into the permitting process, there's high velocity areas or zones. How does it differentiate when it comes to a permit and what they're looking for versus other areas that might not be in those high velocity zones?
Yeah, that varies drastically. When we were doing the Kia factory up in Bainbridge, Georgia, the inspector, he wouldn't even get on the building. He just said, "Oh, okay,
looks good."
He wanted us to take some photos. Down here, we actually had inspections scheduled the day that some of the home design team came out to look at one of our projects. And they're pulling shingles and checking the distance with a tape measure, between the nails on the shingle. The inspections here, the permitting here is so much more in depth because we're at such a high risk. So everything in Broward and Dade County operates off of what's called a Miami-Dade NOA, Miami-Dade Notice of Exceptions, and it's a whole separate set of testing than the rest of the state, just for the products used in these two counties alone. So you get a product that's approved in the state of Florida where they'll say it's Florida Building Code approved or FLPA, Florida Product Approval approved, but you can't use it down here in Miami-Dade and Broward because it just hasn't gotten the high velocity testing and does not meet Broward and Dade standards. So it's a whole separate set. We're different from the rest of the country. Right. Toughest permitting and product approvals in the entire nation. Nothing comes close to it.
And when you look at that, like at what point, like where's the threshold as far as geographics? Where does that, I guess, requirement end? Is it Palm Beach? Is it above Palm Beach? Like what does that look like?
So we see
where does it get easier?
That's a good way of putting it. Right? We see that West Palm is generally around the area where the Florida product approvals start taking over. Okay. And the high velocity testing starts becoming less and less of a thing. There's a high velocity map that's available online where anybody can see exactly where the high velocity, it's called an HVAC zone, where it ends. And it essentially is just a line that covers Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties, and then cuts off somewhere around Hudson Island up to Jensen Beach. And the code really loosens up there. Everything goes to Florida product approvals, and it's a little bit easier of a permitting system to work with, that's for sure.
And then what would you say as far as like a contractor that is working with a homeowner or commercial, owner, commercial building owner or HOA, if a contractor says, "Oh, we don't need a permit for this," what would you say?
I would tell them to run as fast as they can.
Red flag, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. Because when you look into everything and knowing the questions to ask when you are hiring a contractor is so important, because that's another thing. Just knowing about the roof and what the most important factors are in installation and the materials and all the different layers, but those questions and being able to read into those questions, as far as, because there's a lot of contractors out there that, and we're talking interior, we're talking exterior,
right,
where they'll try to do the quick, fix, and there might be a reason for it. Maybe they're not actually licensed. Maybe they don't have all the insurances and everything that, local governments and municipalities want to make sure that their contractors have. But what would you say in the sense of that hiring process, what that looks like in the sense of whether it's red flags or what a contractor really should be saying in that process?
You just hit a couple of them right on the head. So those are two major things. Number one is licensing, right? You have to be licensed, in your trade, the state of Florida, to do business. But what a lot of people don't know is you can literally buy a license. Right. It is simply a money issue. People hold licenses, and what they do for a living is they farm their license out to unlicensed contractors to do work, and they collect a percentage of the work for their license.
Right.
That is a legitimate way to make a living here in South Florida, which
and it's legal.
I don't know.
I
don't know.
I mean, because I've heard it before for a lot of different areas, whether it's somebody's doing interior remodeling or whatever, they're not the license holder, but there's somebody that's like the qualifier or the ones that signs off on it.
Right. And that is a thing down here, and the legality of it, I'm sure they put something in writing saying they're part business partner or something like that to make it legal. But that's a situation that you need to run from as far as you can. One question, if a roofer's not giving you his license in any proposal that he's giving to you, like every proposal that comes out of SCI, we have a copy of our license just sitting right there. And even furthermore, you just pull it out, and the number one thing you want to look for is, one, is it still valid today, and is it their name on it? Every proposal that comes out, there's a license with my father's name on it.
Right.
And so if it has somebody else's name on it, that more than likely means that they are renting their license, and that is a very dangerous thing, because if they have a problem, the manufacturer won't cover it. The person that they're renting their license is going to have a hold harmless in place. Right. So where they just say, not my problem. And then you're basically chasing down somebody without a license and responsibility to try and fix your problems. It's not a good situation to be in. And
often those guys are the ones that are opening up as a new business. However many months later. Unfortunately, but these are the red flags that people can look for, because it's so important when hiring a contractor, knowing who you're hiring, feeling comfortable and everything, but knowing what goes into basically running a business, a contracting business, and being comfortable with them, and knowing what a warranty really means is basically the fact that this company is still going to be around. Right.
A warranty is, licensing is one thing, and a warranty is another big one that I love to boast about, because it's something I'm proud of. My warranty is 1 page long, and it doesn't have very many exclusions. It's a very inclusionary thing. And it basically says that if there's a problem, we're going to stand behind our work. And if there's a 50-50 ball as to whether it's my responsibility or not, we're going to cover it. Right. It's just how we have decided to do business. But we also like to give longer warranties because we're confident in our work. We just do a good job. And so we often give 10-year warranties from us. But I had a situation not even 3 months ago where I went and I was pitching a condo, and they said, your competitor gave us a 15-year warranty from the contractor. And I said, sure, I'll match it, no problem. Right. I said, just show me who it is.
Yeah.
And so they pulled him up, and within 30 seconds, I pulled him up on the DPBR, and he'd been in business 8 months. And I told him, I said, what good is a warranty, for 15 years for somebody that's been around 8 months?
He's testing it out with them. He's trying to figure out his way. So, and that's the thing. But, hiring the contractor, knowing all of these things and reading into really what a contractor is telling them, but also things that are on a contract, because when you're giving a proposal, in other areas of the home, there's construction grade, which is basically the base grade. And, a lot of people don't know the terminology, but also there's these unexpected costs that do arise in any project.
100%.
Maybe something is rotted that wasn't expected, or it's basically giving people all the information.
Right.
But what would you say the contractors hide in a normal proposal to lower the price that always ends up getting factored into that proposal?
Wood is going to be easily the number one thing.
Yeah.
So people will, they'll give a lower number for the overall cost, but they won't include an allowance for plywood, even though they know some will be bad, because any roofer that's roofed for more than 6 minutes can walk a roof and just feel where the plywood's bad.
Right.
So I could walk a roof and tell you whether it's going to be 2 bad or 20 bad, and I could be within 10 or 15% accurate. So what roofers will sometimes do is they'll give you a lower number, but they won't include wood allowance, knowing that you're going to have some plywood.
Right.
And then they'll charge an exorbitant number for the plywood.
Yeah.
Right now, generally when it comes to stuff like that, materials times 3 is like, kind of the go-to. So a plywood's around $33, $35 a sheet. You should be paying somewhere around $100 to get it installed. So if you're anywhere, I saw somebody where they put $250 a sheet of plywood the other week. It's, in my mind, that's exorbitant.
Right. It's not right, because basically once the roof is torn off, you're already in it. It's too late. So, your feelings, you might not feel the same way at that point or really like the contractor. But at the end of the day, like, the contractor has the job, they're already in it. But they're not there to be able to maintain the relationship.
Right.
They're just there for the sale.
It's one of those things where it's called unforeseen conditions. You have, the biggest 3 things are your trusses, your fascia, and your plywood, where you can't see them. And even if you go in the attic, you can't see them because plywood's 5 layers. And so the top layer will wear out before the bottom layer does. So you can look, and it's okay from the bottom, but it won't be okay from the top, and it's got to be swapped out. That is the number one thing where people go and they take advantage of people, is just the wood costs and jacking those up. So I've seen people where they signed a contract and they said, oh, we're going with this guy in place of you because we're $30,000 and he's $28,000.
Right.
They open the roof up and he hits them with 6,000 change orders because of the wood, and he's up at 34 by 30.
Right.
And so it's very,
that's important. And when looking at everything, because we're here in South Florida, something I just want to shed a little light on and get your feedback, because I hear a lot of different things from roofers. Solar. Yeah. So solar sounds good. Yeah. But what's your take on it? Like, at the end of the day, people are drilling into a roof. Right. They're creating holes. Does that completely eliminate any warranty that a roof might have? Or like, what's your take on solar?
The solar is a very, very touchy and controversial subject in the roofing world. Some people love it, and they rename their companies Roofing and Solar, and they buy all in, and they partner with solar companies. Some guys completely avoid it like the plague. And then some guys are kind of a mix. And the truth is, solar is a good technology. It is a good that's brought to this world that has moved us in the right direction. Do I think putting it on roofs is the best solution? In most cases, no. On a metal roof, you would never hear me, talk bad about solar or say don't do it, because they attach the clips to the tops of the brackets.
You're not puncturing
it. Doesn't puncture the roof whatsoever. I think that is one of the most marvelous additions to the roofing space that, we could have seen. And I truly do love the technology. It wipes out power bills. But the way the industry's set up today, the solar industry, I see it from people that sneak into, home shows and try and, sell me their solar services, or, guys that go door to door. I've had several come to my house trying to sell me solar. It is just the way the industry set up is really rough. There's a tax credit you get for installing solar panels. Right. And if you don't buy those panels outright in cash, where you take a loan of any sort, whether it's through them or a credit union, or you take, even worse, a lease on the panels.
And that's become more popular.
It is insanely popular, and it's insanely destructive, because what happens is it's written in the law that if there's like some sort of I don't know the exact wording, but essentially if there's some sort of loan or lease on the panels, the installer or whoever holds the loan or lease is allowed to take the credit. So the whole point that makes the sale beneficial, because a solar bill vice a power bill, they're going to be in the same neighborhood. The whole thing is you get the credit, and then when they're paid off, you then have the benefit
of it, right.
of the solar, because you're then, you don't have the solar payment. So that's the upside. But if they're taking away the upside when they sell you it and just roping you into a bad loan, I that's something I just think's unethical. But that's the majority of the industry, unfortunately. Right. And that's not even touching what it does to the roofs.
No, without a doubt. And that's the thing. And there's a lot of benefits, just like anything. There's benefits to everything. But at the end of the day, it's knowing all of the pros and cons, being able to weigh it out, and understanding, because a lot of people, they get sold payments in a lot of different areas of everything. And, people are just selling payments, whether you're buying a truck, whether you're buying a roof, whatever it might be, windows. But you have to know really why you're buying it, what it looks like as far as the overall investment, and being able to break it down. But going into everything, we spoke about a lot of different things today, as far as what goes into the installation, what goes into the different products, all the different types of roofing, the types of buildings, the types of everything. You clearly know roofs.
A little too much.
There's no such thing. And it's impressive because, you're a young guy, but you've been in it for a long time. You've been around it forever. Your family's been around it. You've seen pretty much probably everything that you probably can see when it comes to roofs. Yeah. And that all comes down to experience, because that's what you're hiring. You're only as good as your last project. Right. You're only as good as your overall perception within the industry here in your market. What people are saying about you. Reviews don't lie. You guys do an amazing job. I want to ask you about some of your favorites. Okay. All right? You've seen a lot.
Yeah.
And actually, it doesn't necessarily have to be favorites.
Right.
Because I want to ask you what the most memorable project has been that you've been on. And that could be either way. It could be like, man, everything went wrong, but somehow we came out on top at the end, or this house had every challenge that we possibly could, and we conquered it. Like, whatever your most memorable is, what does that look like?
My most memorable, that's a good one. So this isn't my most memorable, but it is notable. We did do several roofs, including the Admirals Club at Guantanamo Bay in Cuba, and I was just enlisting in the military and actually in boot camp while those roofs were going on. And so I wasn't there for it, but I was there when the contract was signed and we got that job. And that was a very, very exciting time at SCI because it was something new. It was a unique challenge. Yeah. So that was up there. But my most memorable would definitely be back in 2016, we did a mall in Oakland Park called the Market Plaza. It's on Oakland Park Boulevard in 441. And it's a massive 1.4 million square foot building. And I think that's the most memorable because I remember pulling up there at 5 a.m. and leaving at 8 p.m, all through my high school time. And I learned a lot about roofing on that job. And I got a lot of repetition. I got a lot of experience. And I was, 17, turning 18 around that time. That was my first opportunity on a project like that to lead men and lead a crew and really, install a roof on my own. And so, being a teenager and essentially being given the keys to a 1 million square foot building and said, make sure this thing's watertight, that, it was a fun experience and definitely most memorable because I don't think there's been a shorter stretch where I've learned more about not only, roofing itself, but how to lead, how to operate, how to organize things. And it's carried with me to today.
It's quite the first project. That's pretty impressive. How about the most luxurious project?
Luxurious is good. We did the JP National House, which is the gentleman that owns JP National in Billionaire Bunker in Miami. And that was actually a flat roof with solar on it. Oh, wow. So, we've done, we installed 88 panels on his house, and we did waterproofing on his decks. That was... I got to be there several times and, to to see all these 80, 90, $100 million homes.
Right.
You know, this is a community of 33 homeowners, and they have their own police department. It's just a different level of living. And that home was actually bought by a gentleman named Larry Ellison, who owns Oracle. So
oh wow,
it's
all right.
You know, it's passed hands, but we did the roof on there, and it's a beautiful, beautiful property right down there in Miami, and I would say that's definitely the most luxurious.
That's amazing. And being able to see these projects and being able to work on them and see how they're built, and having these relationships is incredible. And the fact that, you know, these types of homes, these types of homeowners, they're hiring you guys, these types of builders that are building these types of structures because they acknowledge the expertise. They acknowledge, you know, everything that you guys have done over the years, 47 years of installing roofs and repairing roofs and maintaining roofs. But we've had the pleasure of obviously working with you for some time now. You've been a part of the home show. You know, what would you say, and I'm looking for a plug for us. No, but in all seriousness, you know, what made you guys want to get into the home show? What has it done for your business? What do you look at the home show in the sense of, like, you know, why people should attend? That's
a great question. And you know, you'll probably get a kick out of this answer. But originally, we had, in 2021, when I got out of the military, we were not doing shows. It was just not a thing in our, you know, agenda. Me and one of my advisors convinced the owner, my father, to sign us up for a couple. So we signed up for a couple condo shows.
Okay.
And right off the bat, I sold a 7-figure job off the first condo show within 3 weeks. And so it was like an instant proof of concept. And so the first thing at the next staff meeting was, I want to sign up for more shows. This was good. And so we looked into different spaces, and that's where we crossed the home design and remodeling show. And originally, I just thought it was another show, and then we called you. We just said, we're interested in signing up. And it wasn't like, okay, here's how much it costs for this.
Right.
You guys came and investigated us, which nobody's ever done. Like, you came and looked at our company, and, you know, and I see it now on the backside, because you don't want, you know, the fly-by-night guys getting in your show and, you know, being attached to your reputation. You came and you looked at us, and you investigated to see if we were legitimate, what we were doing, we're by the book, right? And that stood out to me more than anything else, because I was like, okay, it's not just like we're signing up for the show. It's like we have to be a part of it.
Right.
And we have to, you know, be almost, I wouldn't say, I guess invited would be a good word, you know, because you don't take anybody off the street. And so that really stood out to me. And we joined the show. We had some immediate success. We really, really love being a part of it. And we've been with you guys 3.5 years now. And I told you this, you know, multiple times. I just, you know, we aren't going anywhere. You know, we'll be a part of it until you decide not to do it. So it's been great for us, and we love it. And you guys have been, you know, great for us as well. So
absolutely, and we look at it as a partnership, because at the end of the day, like, we look at ourselves as an extension to your team, as an extension to all of our different exhibitors, because just like you know, you're as good as your projects. We're as good as the exhibitors, and we have a responsibility to deliver the best quality event to the South Florida market, to introduce them to the experts, the ones that have the most amount of knowledge, expertise. But at the same time, it's an opportunity, because we do have new companies. We have companies that are just starting out. I mean, I've worked with companies that literally they started out of their garage, and now they have massive warehouses and big brands, and like, it just seeing success and the stories behind it. And a lot of it, you know, it's okay to be a new business.
Right.
It's just a matter of what your daily practice is and what you're doing to make sure that you're doing everything right to be able to get to that point, because there are also other companies, new as well as established and old, that are not doing the right things. Yeah. So we do our best, but having people like you, having brands like yours, and having teams in the real care that goes beyond, you know, just the day-to-day, you know, the fact that you guys put as much as you do into every single detail is what matters to us and what stands out to us. And we love working with you guys, and, you know, you're the best representation of the show. So we appreciate that.
We appreciate you guys. You know, something you said to me a while ago, and I you know, somebody famous once said, when they speak, you listen. What is it? E.F. Hutton speaks. I think it's E.F. Hutton. When E.F. Hutton speaks, everybody listens. And there's a commercial where everybody would stop what they're doing.
Right.
And so you kind of have that effect on me, where when you say something, I listen. You told me once a while ago, you said, what is good. Like if you're doing big projects, you're doing this all, and nobody sees it, right?
Right.
And so, something else that you guys have helped us out with is you now took over our social media presence. And let me tell you, I was never a Facebook guy or an Instagram guy. I still don't know what TikTok is, but people talk about it every day. And you guys have took over that for us, and you've been running it for about 7 months now, and we're ecstatic with it. You come out to the sites and you videotape the guys, make, presentations and all the stuff that goes into it. It's not my wheelhouse necessarily,
right.
but we've had customers say stuff to us about how it looks professional what we're doing, and it looks really good the way we're presenting stuff. And so I feel that's a part of it, right? You're doing good work, you're doing a good job for people. You also have to show people that you're doing that,
right.
and convey that to it. And you guys have helped us not only with the shows but with that as well, immensely. And so I couldn't say thank you enough.
No, well, I appreciate you saying that. And just like for you and your business, it all comes down to team. And I can say we have the best team between Grace, Taylor, we have Susie, and just everybody here. And, being able to really identify with the companies that we work with, be able to, show the passion, show the knowledge, show their projects, because ultimately social media should be viewed in the sense that that is your most lively portfolio. That is the projects that you're doing every single day. It's showing people that you're doing business, this type of projects that you're doing. And that's what's impressive. So, again, we appreciate it. And I know our team loves working with you guys, but
thank you for having us.
But we spoke about a lot today.
Yes.
Is there anything we missed?
I told you before we started, you got to kick me out of here because I could talk about roofs all night. So this is, I love roofing to the, it's my passion. I get up at 4 a.m. every morning, and I don't mind it one bit because I know what I'm going to work to do. If I were to leave people with one thing, it would be that this market, the roofing market in Florida, in South Florida especially, has just taken a very bad downturn in the last couple of years in the terms of the quality of the guys and the contractors that are, installing roofs nowadays. There's an increased need, and so there's now a drop in quality. And if it means you have to wait a little bit longer, if it means, the process is dragged out a little bit longer, or it's a little bit slower in general because you're dealing with a bigger and more reputable company, that might be a pain worth bearing.
Right.
Anybody worth their name right now in South Florida, they should have about a 90 to 120 day backlog of work, because that is just a healthy backlog for a company that is installing good roofs. And so if there's somebody that's saying they can jump on your roof right away, that's a red flag in and of itself. So, waiting a little bit for somebody that's going to do a good job for you might not be the worst thing in the world. And, now more than ever, it is really, really important to, pick a reputable guy. And so if you're making a 5-figure decision, like any roof would be,
right?
It's going to be a 5-figure decision. It's not a bad idea. There's, I'm not the only roofer at the home show. There's 5 others, and they're not bad. I know who they are. Right. If you pick anybody at the home show or you go to a show like yours, and you take your time to learn about the products, talk to, licensed roofers, talk to professionals about it, it will not backfire. You'll be happy in the end. You'll be paying around the same, and, you won't have a bad process.
Realistically, the backlog means the company's going to be in business for when you really need them.
It means they're not going anywhere. That's
Absolutely.
Right.
So, I can't thank you enough for being here. If somebody who's listening to this, they want to contact you guys, what's the best way?
You can visit our website at sciroof.com, or you can give us a call at 888-SCI-ROOF. That's the easiest way to reach out to us.
And check out your Instagram and your Facebook and everything, right?
Yeah, these ladies over here running it, they're doing a phenomenal job. So go ahead and check that out.
And that's SCI.roofing.
SCI.roofing.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being in here. It was awesome speaking with you. I learned a lot about every component of the roof, and it really brings a lot of great insight to what people should know when they're going into needing a roof, repairing a roof, maintaining a roof. I mean, you guys have all the information, and being able to put that personal touch on people's homes, definitely give you guys a call, check them out, and have them check out your roof, because that's the whole point. It's being preventative and knowing what you're looking at down the road.
you don't want to wait until it's too late. So you want to take some action while you can. That's for sure.
Absolutely. But for all of you for tuning in, I appreciate you listening to this episode. And for all of you that don't know, the Home Design and Remodeling Show is Florida's premier destination for everything home design and home improvement. Visit the Home Design and Remodeling shows in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and Palm Beach. Go to our website, check us out at homeshows.com. Follow us at FL Home Shows. Subscribe to our channel to get all of the latest in home design and home improvement. But until next time, stay tuned for the next episode.